The hottest crypto narrative yet. An article was just released on the 21st of January from Coin Bureau, which is going over Decentralized Science. And I'm extremely excited to share this article with you guys here today because they go over many DeSci projects that you should pay attention to that we have covered on this channel. If you're a fan of Decentralized Science, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe because we also go live Monday through Friday. But I want to talk about this because it's exciting for multiple reasons. It's exciting because Coin Bureau is finally giving DeSci the light that it actually deserves. DeSci has been very much so flying under the radar. If you don't know what DeSci is, it's decentralized social media. But as they say, among the number of crypto-enabled narratives, DePIN, DeSoc, tokenized real-world assets, DeSoc is decentralized social media. They have emerged over the past couple of years. There is one that seems to have gone relatively under the radar, DeSci, or Decentralized Science. And it is so damn true. Nobody's looking at this, nobody's talking about it, and the people who are talking about it don't have the background or the knowledge to actually do a good job of explaining it to you guys. So that's why I'm here. I'm here to help everyone hold our hands through DeSci as it emerges, because it's literally brand new, so they're still trying to figure everything out as it goes. However, those who have taken a closer look at this narrative know that DeSci has far more potential than most give it credit for. This is largely due to its potential to eliminate some of the major barriers preventing large-scale scientific research and collaboration. This becomes even more relevant and important when you realize that collaborative and open research was crucial in producing cures or vaccines in times of distress, such as the recent pandemic. In fact, the easiest way to understand how DeSci adds value to traditional science is to take a look at how it impacts each of the four major stages of scientific research. First up, we have funding, then we have the actual research, then the peer review, and the publication. Again, it is the virtuous loop that we talk about in every single one of the DeSci videos that we make. I don't know why I'm making figure eights with my hands like that. In traditional science, in TradSci, there's certain areas of science that just don't get the funding because it doesn't look like it's going to be ROI positive, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't be doing the funding. And in fact, doesn't even mean that we won't get any positive ROI from it. There was a video that came out, which we'll talk on a little bit later, but my brain's spiraling right now with Patrick Joyce right here and Brian Armstrong on the Bankless podcast that literally aired today, in which Brian Armstrong, who is one of the co-founders of Research Hub with Research Coin, was stating that Coinbase is a product of something that doesn't look like it would be super profitable at first, but because of funding scientific research that led Satoshi to create something that again had no value in the beginning, Bitcoin, it led to Coinbase. So Satoshi's breakthrough led to Coinbase. Funding is one of the most crucial stages and dictates what researchers choose to study and how they study it. A Vox report found that funding for scientific research in the United States has plateaued since 2000, even dipped with the sequestration budget cuts in 2013. Meanwhile, the talent pool for scientific researchers has been growing exponentially. If we go look at the Vox report, you can actually see right here what he's talking about. So trends in federal science funding by discipline. Bird won't leave me alone right now, so he's going to watch here as well. You can see the green line right there, the NIH biomedical research. Let's zoom in a little bit so you can see it better. Of course, the image stays the same size. The NIH biomedical research peaked back here right after the year 2000, and then kind of like plateaued downwards, minus these 2 or 3 years that it spiked again around the financial crisis in 2008. I believe this is likely just a reversal back to the norm, right? It got very overheated compared to all the other scientific funding, so I imagine this is just going to slowly trend back down till it catches up with everything else. However, you go across the board and look at everything, there was a little bit of an uptick around the early 2000s, and then for the most part, you see things like this, life sciences in the pink here, trending down. You look at physical sciences, which has plateaued really since the early 1990s. So a lot of the scientific research has plateaued since 2000. And even with that, even if it hadn't plateaued, and you could argue that there's a little bit of an increase on a lot of these, a very small slope up, they're still all hovering around that $5 billion in funding, which is just not a lot when you consider they're needed to progress humanity forwards. And this means that there are more researchers and less funding compared to 30 years ago. This creates an imbalance, which forces existing researchers to retain their lines of funding by continuously publishing literature relating to widely researched and safer focus areas, inevitably resulting in a stall of innovation. If all of the money is focused on just a couple areas and nobody wants to risk not coming up with positive results, that means all of the researchers have to be confined in this little box of research to make sure that they're going to get accurate information, things that can lead to a scientific breakthrough, but not actually a breakthrough, just a monetary breakthrough, right? However, DeSci fixes this funding gap by using decentralized funding models such as crowdsourcing, quadratic funding, and retroactive funding. We've gone over all three of these in past videos. You know what crowdsourcing is. Quadratic funding we've talked about, in which they use a mathematical equation to basically make it so that a bunch of people with small amounts of money will have more voting power than one large figure with a lot of money. I think it's possible that quadratic funding could get gamed, right? If somebody with a lot of money is to split it up into a bunch of small wallets and then go vote for the same thing. I think that I'm probably not the first one to think of that, so there's probably been some way around it. But something we haven't really touched on too much is retroactive funding. So really quickly, I'm going to read that for you guys so you can get an idea of all the different ways of funding, right? So they made a little GIF here. Profit motives solve everything. Let's just donate to fund things. Let's have quadratic funding. No. Let's have retroactive public's good fundings. Startups are notoriously difficult challenges even with ample investment funding. The majority fail, but they have one important advantage: the possibility of an exit. Exits create incentives for upfront funding, hiring, motivation, and alignment through equity, a share in the exit. However, for nonprofits and public good projects, this light at the end of the tunnel just doesn't exist. So, given this, it's not surprising that many of the best and brightest rockstar builders, even those who genuinely want to maximize good, end up taking the for-profit path, even if it means that they're compromising their mission statement. They're compromising on what they want to do with their life. It doesn't matter because you have to eat, you have to live. So you can say you want to do all the public good in the world, but if nobody's going to pay for it, then it doesn't matter. What would happen if suddenly exits did exist for public good projects? An exit determined by how much public good has been created by the project, rather than simply quarterly profits. You can come down here and see the core principle behind the concept of retroactive public goods funding is simple. It's easier to agree on what was useful than trying to predict what will be useful. So you put in a lot of work for the potential of a useful outcome at the end. And once that useful outcome has been monetized or created or identified, then everyone who contributed to that work gets funding. That's not possible in the traditional scientific route because there's no way of keeping track of every single person. But on a blockchain, you can digitally sign everything, and every time something gets published, your name goes on it, and it's there cemented on the chain forever. So it's very unique. That's what I mean. Blockchain, we have no idea what blockchain is going to look like 20, 30 years from now. We just know that there are unique possibilities that people truly have not yet come up with. And so I'm excited to see this kind of stuff. I think decentralized science is going to push a lot of the thought forward into a new realm of what's possible with blockchain technology. Because you go back 5, 10 years ago, nobody ever would have thought, let's decentralize science. But yet, here we are. Moreover, this also led to a rise in DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, which we cover a lot here. The likes of Vita DAO for longevity, we have Hair DAO for hair loss, we have Athena DAO for women's health, and we have Valley DAO for climate change. Interestingly enough, I have interviewed Valley DAO, Athena DAO, Hair DAO, I'm just waiting on that VitaDAO interview, so if you're watching this from VitaDAO, hit me up. I'd love to get the interview on the channel. But we're paying close attention to the DAOs. We're covering a lot here. Meanwhile, research, the second stage of the process, is plagued by issues surrounding a lack of transparency and record keeping. Specifically, the current architecture is one where researchers work in silos under centralized bodies that fund their efforts and claim ownership over the resulting intellectual property that is produced. So think about Harvard. If you're a professor at Harvard and you conduct research and you get certain results of that research that are monetizable, you don't get to keep that. Harvard gets to keep that because they let you use their facilities. They gave you some money to use. Therefore, your work is just their work. If you kind of think about it, it's just extra steps to slavery. No, that's probably a hot take and I might cut that out, but we'll see. This not only results in researchers having limited autonomy and rights over their research, but also contributes to issues such as replication crisis. So again, 80% of research that is conducted and peer-reviewed and cited by other researchers can't actually be reproduced, which means the research was fudged to make it so that it gave a certain outcome so that they could maintain that circle of credibility, that circle of continue funding me, please, everyone with lots of money, right? You have to show that you have an outcome that can make people money to continue to get funding. So you fudge the numbers to make it that way, and then you get cited in other people's research because it's just a you scratch my back, I'll scratch your back game between the peer review process. DeSci fixes this problem by using decentralized storage solutions built on public blockchains to create a verifiable and publicly available record of the research. This also allows researchers to bypass centralized intermediaries and collaborate with other open source researchers. A few of the projects working on decentralizing the research layer are LabDAO, Data Lake, Coordination Network, and Primal Intellect. I've not heard of Primal Intellect or Coordination Network before, so shout out Coin Bureau for handing these over to us. We've made videos on Data Lake and I've touched on LabDAO very, very briefly, so thank you for giving us these. We'll definitely be taking a look at these in further depth. As the issue regarding intellectual property, DeSci players use IP NFTs to allow researchers the freedom to license the IP to other entities, either via private deals, auctions, or even fractionalization. Projects such as VitaDAO use IP NFTs. And we track this. I just made a video on VitaDAO's treasury and all of the IP NFTs. I feel like I'm just self-shilling the entire time, but like that's what I get when I literally dedicate my entire channel to decentralized science. And then we get someone like Coin Bureau making a video or making an article like this. It's huge, but they're going over very basic information here. They're just going over the why behind DeSci, and that's like apparent to everyone who's already been here, but it's new for everyone outside of our little ecosystem here. So it's important that people hear this over and over again from multiple resources that they trust. Coin Bureau is a very trustworthy resource in the space. Peer review, the third stage of the process, is another important step which ensures the quality of the research being produced. However, it lacks proper incentives, since researchers perform peer review for free, while the academic publishing industry extracts enormous profits from the process by acting as an intermediary. So in order to get published on one of the centralized publishing warehouses, there's only like 5 who control most of the industry, you have to make sure your research is peer reviewed. They won't give you any money for that, and they require it before you pay to get it on the website, before you pay them to publish it. So the scientists are just doing the peer review process for free for each other to build rapport within the industry. That's broken. That's a broken incentivization model. DeSci projects such as Research Hub Foundation, co-founded by Brian Armstrong, seek to resolve this issue by offering token incentives for honest peer reviews. And this brings us to where I wanted to talk about Brian Armstrong and Patrick Joyce being on the Bankless podcast this morning. Very huge. I'm going to be watching this a little bit later. It's an hour and 24 minutes, so I'll probably watch it at the gym or something so that I can kind of like digest it a little bit and give a little precursor before we talk about it in separate videos. Research Hub, I wouldn't sleep on them. The final stage of this process is publication. As noted above, the primary issue that plagues scientific research is the amount of control in the hands of centralized entities, including publishing bodies. Specifically, these publishers lock publicly funded research behind paywalls and even require researchers themselves to pay publications to publish their work. By decentralizing the publishing landscape, we can decrease the centralization of the power. So once scientists and researchers pay to publish on these warehouses, the government agencies and the universities that want to read these website articles, want to read the research, also have to pay. So these intermediaries, which are just adding a layer of friction to this entire scientific process, are sitting there getting paid from the scientists and from the people who want to study the science that happened. It's very, very backwards. The attention towards DeSci is slowly but surely growing. Major names like Coinbase's aforementioned Brian Armstrong and Binance's, former Binance's, Changpeng Zhao, CZ, have already, I probably butchered that so bad, have already announced their next moves will involve the acceleration of the DeSci landscape. This narrative could well be one to watch this cycle. You already know where I stand on this. Let me know what you guys think down below. Is this your first time ever hearing of decentralized science? It certainly will not be the last time you guys hear about it, especially as major players begin to wake up to what's happening. CZ is likely going to announce in the next couple weeks to months some level of engagement with the community, the DeSci community, whether that's a project or just being an advisor on a project or just major investments in stuff. I don't know what it's going to look like, but based off of the tweet that he made not too long ago, back in November, he said, been reading about biotech, thinking about how to use crypto to accelerate research funding there. This caused a massive spike in all of the coins because everyone understands what this actually means. And now we're seeing him being included into things like Coin Bureau's publication here. He was included in CoinGecko's publication. He's being included everywhere because people on the inside understand that he's actually starting to ask around and figure out where he might best fit. And then you can see my boy right here. Stop, I'm not done building out my DeSci portfolio. The last question I'm going to ask you guys, when is the best time to be scooping up cryptocurrencies? Is it A, when everyone is talking about it and all of the hype is around the sector and everyone is trying to run in and grab whatever coin they think has gone up the most in the previous 6 weeks, 6 months? Or is it when no one's paying attention to it and the vision is super clear to you and you know that these things are about to come and so you try and get in beforehand? I think the answer is pretty obvious right there, hence why I've dedicated my entire platform to DeSci. Your time's your most valuable asset. Hopefully this was worth investing it into. Exciting times ahead, guys. I'll see you guys in the next video.